This week at Château de Purnon, the restoration of the chateau's magnificent roof reaches another milestone. A familiar face arrives to give us a helping hand devegetating the Moulin Bigeard. Tim sets to work to rid the area of centuries of debris. And witness the extraordinary uncovering of our centuries-old dovecote.
Well, you've just watched Kevin, one of our amazing roofers, installing the final slate tiles on this, the central element of Purnon's extraordinary roof, the grand dome which sits on the central axis of the roof. Now, just a reminder for those who've joined us in recent weeks, traditionally when slate roofs were constructed on stately homes and chateaux in France, they were secured using nails, iron nails. Today we use copper nails. Now, at the end of the 19th century, it became acceptable to use these clips. These clips made restoring and installing slate roofs faster, but they don't last as long and they're not as secure. So here at Purnon, we're committed to respecting the traditional techniques and we're committed to using the traditional methods. And so in partnership with our amazing architect, Monsieur Frédéric Didier, and the French government, the heritage authorities who are supporting our project, we're using the traditional method, securing all of the 47,000 slate tiles which sit on Purnon's roof with these copper nails, 2 copper nails for every tile. So it's just another part of the important journey of respecting and honouring heritage in the restoration of this extraordinary roof. This roof, which can be seen for miles around, no matter from which direction you gaze on Château de Purnon. So another important milestone in the restoration of this amazing roof.
So you may remember last week we brought you up here for a tour of Purnon's Moulin Bigeard, which is 100 years older than the chateau itself and in need of a heap of TLC. But today we have the amazing Peter Madison with us, who is an Australian architect extraordinaire and the former host of Grand Designs in Australia. So we're incredibly privileged to have you here with us, Peter. Tell us what you think. Are we crazy?
Well, I think you got me up here for cheap labour. I think that's what it's about.
Are we that transparent?
That's right. Oh, look, it's just absolutely delightful being here. Of course, I've seen a lot of it on YouTube and all your social postings, and it's better than I thought it would be. We're dealing with something here which is so important, not just to the region, but I think to a lot of people who want to take on any heritage project, whether it be in Australia or overseas. The sense of respect and a sense of care that you're putting into this project is really something that I'll take away from being here. But today we're just mowing lawns and pulling weeds, so it's far less, I guess, impactful in terms of the chateau itself.
Yeah.
We're away from the chateau, perhaps a kilometre, in
Yeah.
one of these outbuildings, and I think these little secret delights that you have on the property are really something.
Yeah, they've got a lot of charm, these beautiful buildings, but they're complicated for us because it's so much to maintain the chateau itself, and then you add in all these sort of buildings that are at risk of basically being ruined.
And that's the problem. I mean, that's your challenge, isn't it? As to where you invest your energies, because it's a very large campus you're dealing with here.
Yeah.
And there's so many parts you could be focusing on. And I think the work on the chateau is number one, and that's looking really terrific. But, you know, where do you stop and start? And this is your challenge, isn't it?
I feel like Tim and I will be the generation that saved everything or protected everything. You know, like we seem to be having to be focused on roofs because there's so many buildings that have got terrible roofs.
Water is your enemy, as is the very verdant grass you have here in France.
Yeah.
Nature wants to take it back over.
Yeah.
It does, and you know, it doesn't take long.
Everything you've got here is so precious. Although it's decaying, it's so beautiful. And Tim, you can see the effort and humanity that's gone into these walls, both the buildings and the fences. And I'm just awestruck, sort of realising how much loving care has gone into the construction of this place, because you can see the way it's built. There's nothing hidden. You can see the craft that's gone into it. And that's just generations of labour.
Despite the inequality that they demonstrate back in that era, they are things of rare beauty, and I think saving them is not only important because of their visual splendour, but it's important because of what it tells us about the lives of the people who lived in those previous centuries.
And Peter, so this building, let's talk about this building. Can we save it?
Well, there's a lot of structural movement going on, and the cracks internally and externally are significant. So it's an engineering question, really, and it's also a financial question. I mean, how far can you make your dollar spread here? You've got the chateau itself, which is going to be a hungry beast and chew up a lot of resources, which has got to be a focus, and it is.
And the large two outbuildings with the chapel and the stables that are so incredibly important as well.
If you make the right offer, I'll sell my place in Brighton, Melbourne, and I'll take it on. How's that sound?
I mean, we have a deal. How long is it going to take you to sell your house?
Very slow market at the moment.
Our priority is really about saving as much as we can. The insides of the chateau we will restore over time, but the battles of saving buildings is some of our most important battles.
Well, that was hard work.
There's a word for that.
I think the word's hard yakka.
So, there's a lot of holes up there. Does each hole in that wall represent a pair of pigeons?
So they're a mating niche. So I'm not sure whether it represents a pair of pigeons or one pigeon.
Okay, let's just say it's one pigeon.
One pigeon. Let's say it's one
So
pigeon.
how many? There's 4 sides.
4 sides.
Without counting.
Okay.
I've got the upper hand.
You've got the upper hand. You've worked it out.
I've already counted. How many pigeons?
Well, I feel like 10 by 10, there's probably 100 on each side, maybe. And then 4 sides, 400 niches, 1 pigeon per niche, 400 pigeons.
And how big's the land here?
So our land is about 60 inside the chateau walls, but remember there were no chateau walls when this was built. But the land that we're on was about 60 acres.
Isn't it the formula that there's 1 pigeon per acre?
That's spot on.
So there's actually 150 per side.
Is there?
So
600?
Approximately 600.
Approximately, okay.
Let's just say 1 pigeon per hole.
Yep.
So does that mean the original property was 600 acres?
Yep, so the person who owned the Moulin Bigeard had the feudal right to run 600 pigeons, therefore they had 600 acres. I would say that's about right. And I'm glad we don't have to clear it all.
Well, that was a really exhausting job.
Yeah.
But a lovely reveal
Yeah.
to see a ruin like that completely overgrown and hidden. And what a fabulous looking, unique structure.
Well, remember originally it had a little roof on top, and then on top of that there was a little lantern structure, so it would have stood up a bit higher than the Moulin Bigeard, and it would have had a commanding view of the countryside.
And Flick, isn't it that the pigeons were a status symbol?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
more pigeons, the more prestigious you are as the landlord or the lord over the land.
Well, it was only the nobles that were actually allowed to have the pigeons. So you only had the right to have pigeons if you had a noble title. So it was very hierarchical and like a great source of unrest for.
Well, but yeah, by the time of the French Revolution, when the peasants felt they could articulate their grievances for the first time, they had books in every local parish, and the workers, the peasants, could come and write their grievances in these books. They were called cahiers de doléances, and in them, one of the most frequently cited grievance was the existence of these pigeonniers, and the French Revolution led to that great modern reform of the pigeonniers industry, deregulation. And when they deregulated the industry and suddenly you could kill the pigeons that were grazing on your farmland as a tenant farmer, it wasn't profitable for the feudal landlord to run the pigeons anymore because they had to feed them themselves.
And they were not just status symbol, they were food as well.
They were food, but also they were harvesting the phosphate from the animal waste
For the
And the
fertiliser.
kitchen garden, which is just round
for the
corner.
kitchen garden,
Yeah.
and also for the grapevines. Apparently, the phosphate is a fantastic fertiliser for grapevines.
Which
so there
would
you
have
go.
been, which we know were planted just behind us here. And so they're nice and close.
And in clearing the pigeonnier, I came across a wine bottle. It shows what a virtuous cycle it was, that the pigeon waste was fertilising the vines, and the pigeons were drinking the wine. So lucky them, I suppose.
Amazing. Thanks, Pete. Well, that's Purnon's pigeonnier. What remains of it?
Voila!
Cleared.
I think they would say
Is
in
this
French.
done for the day?
I mean, I think we've
Or is
had a
there
pretty
more?
big day. Have you still got more left in you?
Well, I am enjoying it. I love the country, love getting into it. And, when there's relics like this that you stumble across, it's so exciting. So I've got a bit more in me, I reckon.
Okay, we tried to break you. We didn't succeed. We'll have to.
That's very kind of you to keep going.
That's a lot of rubbish, babe.
Well, this has all come from behind the pigeon. And some of it's pretty old, like some of it's stuff like, you know, old hobnail boots.
Oh yeah.
Um,
What about this one?
Yeah,
I feel like that belongs in an art installation.
Yeah, it was pretty well camouflaged. I think what happened is someone dumped all the rubbish there all at once. So it's got quite old things and then, you know, relatively recent things. And then all the metal's been taken out. So lots of rubbish.
All the metal goes to metal recycling?
Yeah, all the metal.
Okay.
Some of it will be separated. There's zinc in there from old guttering. There's a little bit of lead. And then...
Oh my gosh, Dave, we have that pot.
Well, it's just there, I think, isn't it?
No, I think there's... Oh, maybe it is. We've got another one with the same... No, this is bigger. We've got this one back at the chateau. We've been using it in the roof to collect water.
But then look at these, hon. These are really, really cute.
Oh, you've got horseshoes.
Yeah, and look how small they are.
Oh my gosh, they're tiny. So these are definitely not work horses, this small. I would say, and that would be a miniature. So these might be Shetlands. This is much smaller than a Shetland. So these are not horses that were in the paddock to keep other working horses company. These would have to be children's horses. So I would say that they had kids' horses for the kids to ride, miniatures and Shetlands, and they're the shoes. Because remember, we've also found tiny little stirrups.
Yeah,
so they've had very small kids' saddles here. That's a great collection.
And then look at this.
That's a bit.
Perhaps you can tell me what that is.
That's a horse's bit, so from the bridle. And we've actually got quite a few bits back at the chateau as well.
Well, we can add that to the collection.
Yeah, it would have been a really beautiful bit actually. It's got quite a decorative side to it.
There's always rubbish.
There's always lots of rubbish.
And we're always getting rid of it bit by bit. And it's nice to think that we've sent dozens of loads of rubbish exactly like this to the tip already from all across the estate. And it's nice to think that we're freeing things up, cleaning things up and removing things. Some of the things are quite horrible and you wouldn't want them in the park.
Once we clean up areas, it makes them so much easier to maintain, doesn't it?
No, it does. And also we want to be good stewards of the land here. And that means taking things out that are either dangerous or a little bit toxic or whatever they might be. Junky. And where possible recycling some of it and rescuing things that might be of interest and then otherwise sending them to the tip.
Well, it's been a good week for cleaning the Moulin Bigeard up, hasn't it?
It has. And remember, if you'd like to follow the restoration of Château de Purnon more closely, we post a daily update on our Instagram stories, an exclusive weekly video on Patreon, and this week for our Patreon subscribers, I take you on a tour of this incredible space, Purnon's abandoned and partly ruined second floor. Otherwise, just hit the subscribe button below and we'll keep you up to date.